first story I thought of when you asked me this question about masculinity stories is one that I actually don't remember, but it's one my mom shared with me recently, and it's really important, I think, in how I've interacted with my father in particular, but then in how I've sort of stands as a symbol for how I've grown as a person too. So when I was 4 or 5 years old, my parents had been married for about 15 years, and I had an older brother, and I think my younger brother had just been born. And I was walking through my parents' bedroom, kind of digging through all their crap like little kids do, like rummaging around, and I found this medal, and I didn't know what it was. It was just this pretty like metallic thing that I wanted to play with, and I ran up to my dad and asked him what it was. You know, what is this thing that I found? And it was a Purple Heart that he got in Vietnam. And this is how my mom, who was in the room at the time, first became aware that my dad even fought in Vietnam. So that's an important story for me, because my dad and I have always had this really unique relationship. Like I said, I have 2 brothers, but he's always been more open with me, and I think more willing to be vulnerable. And that's put a lot of pressure on me in some ways, and it's also provided me some useful insight. But over the last few years, I've thought a lot about my relationship with my dad, sort of being confronted with thinking around masculinity. I think that's perhaps inevitable to some degree, because he is a person that told me a lot of stories about manhood, about masculinity growing up. Whether he told them to me directly or I just watched those stories play out in his life. And finding that medal is about finding some piece of my father's pain, that he hides, and then I saw manifested after that through his drinking problem, through his inability to connect with his oldest son, to emotionally open up in the family. He hid that pain for a really, really long time, and that's when he started drinking after he got back from Vietnam. And it also is a really clear example of how these large international politics of empire that I've been sort of involved with before, in this student anti-war movement at Virginia Tech, really played out in my personal, intimate life. That's an example of the real specific connections between, war and U.S. military aggression and my own family's pain and struggles and turmoil. And it's hard, because it's a balance between recognizing that it's not an excuse for my father's behavior, but somehow sort of understanding a piece of him, and that I've found that medal and brought it to him is really interesting and emblematic for the rest of our relationship.